Welcome to the Counselling Tutor Podcast, the must-listen-to podcast for students of counselling and psychotherapy. Here are your hosts, Rory Lees-Oakes and Ken Kelly.
Hello and welcome to the Counselling Tutor Podcast with me, Rory Lees-Oakes. And with me, as always, is the Sputnik of counselling, Mr. Ken Kelly. I've called you Sputnik because that means fellow traveller in Russian, Ken.
Ah, thank you very much. I'm all really excited. You know, everything feels brand new. It's a brand new season. It's a brand new academic year. We have got just so many plans that we want to share with you on the podcast and on the website at Counselling Tutor. We've had brand new updates to the Counselling Study resource. Boy, am I excited for today's episode, Rory.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and a big existential hug to all of you out there. You know, we've not been broadcasting over the holidays, so we hope we've had a really fantastic holiday, a really good break, and are really geared up to getting back into the classroom or getting back into the lecture theatre to re-engage with your studies. And we're here to help you all along the way.
We are indeed, and kicking off episode 84 today, we're going to be speaking about what your goals are for the 2018 through 2019 academic year. Where are you going to see yourself a year from today? We're going to head on into Practice Matters today, and we're going to be looking at the fundamentals in counselling, back to basics, as many of us go back into practice or we go into placement for the first time. Really important stuff there, and as always, there will be a super duper download with that one. And then we're going to close off episode 84 by looking at a reading list that Rory has put together, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the importance of having a reading list and having the resources to support you as you go into your year of study. So kicking us off, goals, Rory, 2018-2019 academic year. Of course, we're speaking about the UK academic year, which is where we broadcast from. Where are we all at?
Well, yeah, there's an old adage, isn't there, Ken, that without a goal you can't score. And that's the first position, isn't it? To realise that you need to set your goals out when you go back to college to make sure that you've got something to measure yourself against. It's really, really useful. There's assignments coming in, there's practice, there may be exams or external portfolios or dissertations to be written. And it's really important that what you do is you set yourself some kind of goals, something you can measure to make sure you're on track.
100%. And I think there's a lovely quote in Alice in Wonderland where Alice speaks to the Cheshire Cat and asks him, I think it's something like, which way should I go? And the Cheshire Cat says, where is it you're going? She says, I don't know. And he says, well, then it really doesn't matter which way you go. If you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter. You're continuously lost. And I guess as this goes out live, we're busy at the very beginning of the academic year. Many of you may not even have gone back to college or to university or to a learning institution as of yet. And this is the time. This is the time to do that planning. Because as Rory said, when you hit the ground, you're going to be inundated with a whole pile of lectures, new things to learn. And that planning can kind of go out the window there, and you're just kind of keeping up with it. But what does your journey look like? Why did you start this journey in the first place? You know, when you go back to your reasons for starting studying. Maybe it's vocational. Maybe you just want to get some skills to use in your job. Maybe that's changed along the lines that you kind of did a taster and found that you really liked it. But it's time to reaffirm that. Have a look at where you are going. And my question is, where will you be 1 year from today? So you may be saying, hey, a year from today, I hope to be qualified. I hope to have my certificate. I hope to be going into practice. You may say, a year from now, I hope to be finishing my master's. Where does your journey end 1 year from today if you look forward?
Yes, and for some of you, that might be the cap and the gown at the graduation in front of your family and friends, celebrating your success. Or for some of you, it might be moving up to the next level, or the next level within a 2 or 3 year course. So it's really, really important that you set and think about your goals. And to that, sometimes we use something called SMART targets. And SMART targets, just very quickly, are a way of goal setting. SMART is an acronym. It means specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely. So those are SMART targets. And if you break down what you need to do under those headings, so what can you measure? You know, what might that be? Could be getting a placement, could be making sure you've got your assignment goals in place and your reading lists. Attainable, making sure you don't overstretch yourself. I know from my experience of teaching, a lot of students set themselves goals that were so unattainable that when they didn't reach them, it kind of knocked their confidence. So make sure that what you do, you can actually do. I think that's really important. It links into being real and relevant, and also timely. I think you're making sure that you've got your calendar out and you're marking in when things like residentials are or when assignments are due in, and then you can look at that and you can say, well, I know I've got an assignment in at the end of January or February. End of February, so I need to start looking at my reading list or drafting it out now. Really, really useful smart targets. When I was in teaching, we used them all the time.
Like it. And I like that it ends with T, time.
Yes.
Time. And you've mentioned something there, Rory, that you don't need to scroll back far on the Facebook group. So the Facebook group is kind of where we all hang out and we chat, and there's over 80,000 members. So really get yourself in there and come and join. There's so many people in there and so many great conversations. And towards the end of the academic year, when it was coming up to submission times, loads of assignments, the theme was very much around, I don't have the time. I'm working. I've got a family. I've got to do my supervision. I've got to do my own private counselling, and I still have to do this assignment work. And that comes down to right now, if you set those times, as Rory has said, and kind of lay it all out when you are in your lecture theatre or your class or wherever it is you study, and an assignment is given, are you able to fill that into a timeline that you already kind of have a rough idea so that you can see how you can work to be timiest on those goals? And I like the first one. It's my favorite and of SMART goals, and that is specific. So it's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time boundaried. And that specific one is so important. Don't be vague with your goals. Make them really specific. Really dig down into them and kind of put what you want out of it. So you were saying, Rory, that maybe you're going into placement this year. So that's a bit vague. I'm going to go into placement. Be more specific. What kind of an agency are you going to be targeting? How are you going to do that? Are you going to send them a letter? Are you going to start phoning around? Be specific, because if you're specific on your goals, it makes the rest of the goal attainment so much easier, because you really know what you're looking for. It's kind of laser focused down. Measurable. How do you know if you're getting closer to that goal or further away? So if an assignment is set and you know that assignment has to be handed in 6 weeks' time, you've now got a time that you can aim for, and you can kind of chunk that up. And then you can measure how much of my assignment have I done as I go forward. So it is a measurable process and attainable, of course, as you've already covered there, Rory. But I think it's only fair, as you take time to kind of look at what your study goals are, where you're going to be in a year's time, that we share what ours are. So there, I guess, less study goals and more support goals. How can we support you from Counselling Tutor through our counselling study resources, through the Counselling Tutor podcast? Rory, do you want to share a little bit about what we have planned and what our goals are for this upcoming academic year?
Well, yes. I mean, certainly one of our goals is to revamp the CSR, and as anybody who's going into it will see, it's got a totally new feel, totally new look, and there's a whole lot more in it. So one of our goals is to really keep adding relevant content, and content that you tell us you need. This is so important. We can only put in what you tell us you want, and that is what we're doing. We've listened very carefully about looked at the Facebook page, emails we've received, and we've taken that and we've converted that, one of our goals, into content that's going to go in. We're also going to be putting in a lot of support around dyslexia. So one of our goals is to have a study section where people who've got dyslexia, like myself and Ken, can gain some idea and some really good little tips on how to work with that and how to structure assignments, because there are some little techniques that we're going to be sharing with you, and we're going to be having someone who knows a lot about dyslexia to help us with that. So that's quite an exciting thing, because the mailbag is always full of people who say, I'm really struggling, I've got dyslexia. So we're gonna give you some help there.
I applaud what you've just said, Rory, and it just shows we're listening. And when you say the mailbag is overflowing, I know I've had 2 emails in this last week, and they are celebratory emails, Rory. They are celebratory emails from learners who have graduated. They've just received information that they have passed, that they've made it through. And in both of these emails, we've had more than just 2, of course, but it's just these 2 specific. In both of these 2 instances, they shared that they struggled with dyslexia. And they've pushed through that and attained, and you can. And I know firsthand the struggles and the mountain that it looks like stretches up in front of you when you have that dyslexia, as do you, Rory. And I think that's important. You know, you were talking, Rory, about the CSR and what our plan is for this next year. And if you're listening to this and thinking, what's CSR? CSR is an acronym. It's 3 letters, C, S, and R, and it stands for Counselling Study Resource. Counselling Study Resource is a paid-for section of what we do at Counselling Tutor. So at Counselling Tutor, we've got our website, which is counsellingtutor.com, which is free and it's packed with information. We put out our podcast once a week during academic term time, which is free to listen to. But we do have a really supportive section of what we offer. We call it Counselling Study Resource, and we have hundreds and hundreds of students from all around the world who choose to pay a monthly fee to be part of the Counselling Study Resource because of the extra support that they get. It supports them alongside their formal training. It's like you wouldn't go into formal training without your books, because you need your books to reference to get you through. Well, Counselling Study Resource is kind of like having a whole library of information there for you. And we've been putting a lot of work into it. We've been listening to what you are saying, and we've created blended learning within the Counselling Study Resource for the very points that you put out around dyslexia. There's loads of podcasts, there's loads of videos. Try and put the information in various ways, and there's going to be more of that going forward. And apart from the dyslexia section that we're putting in a whole learning section where we're really going to focus on important things like academic writing. Rory, I know you were looking into this for us.
Yes, indeed. We're going to be getting a section that helps students plan and look at criteria. One of the things, again, that overflows in the mailbag on a regular basis is people looking at the criteria and saying, I just don't understand what I'm being asked, almost as if the criteria is a foreign language that you cannot understand. And, you know, what we're going to do is we're going to get a translator in, we're going to get an interpreter in, and they're going to be able to help you not only with interpreting the question, but really thinking about how that question is answered, how to draft it out, really good techniques. That's what it comes down to. Assignment writing is as much about technique as it is about putting the information out of your head and putting it onto paper. And we're working with someone who's going to help you with that. And I'm jolly well excited about it. I had a conversation the other day, and I learned a lot in a very short space of time. So if I learned a lot, I'm sure you're going to learn a lot. And that's specifically because we know that people, maybe they've come back, maybe this is you, maybe you've come back to education after a long period of time, as myself and Ken did. And you look at the academic world, and it literally is just like another language. So we're going to help with that, and we've got big plans for that.
Indeed, and what we have a lot planned. We really do, and we can't take up this whole episode telling you about all of our plans. But one last thing that I did want to share with you is that we've heard you. So many people are talking about personal development, the changes that happen during your study, how you find yourself changing, but those around you maybe don't change, and how that can be challenging at times. And because of this, we've heard and we've put a brand new section in the Counselling Study Resource on personal development as well, that we will be filling up as this year unfolds. And one last thing, just got to put it in because it's so exciting. Another aspect is, you know, we do this alone. Very often you're in your class and you've maybe got your classmates there, but when you leave, you're on your own and you have to do this. And one of the a brand new thing that we're putting into the counselling study resource is a learning circle where once every few weeks you can get together online in a live session with students from all around the world, with Rory, maybe with myself. There'll be somebody there moderating this, where you can talk about your study journey, where you can ask troubling questions and get feedback and advice and guidance from fellow peers and from a counselling tutor. And of course, it's those kind of bonds that go with you. I know that I'm still in contact with some of the people I studied with, and still I get referrals from them and refer to them. So it is good professional practice, to make those bonds. And the nice thing about the learning circle in the counselling study resource is it's not just a group where people hang out. It's a group where people who really take this seriously, who want to put the time and effort into their studies, hang out. So hopefully, if you are a counselling study resource member, you will join us there. And if you're not a counselling study resource member, I only have one question for you. Why not? Go and check it out. It is so supportive. It really is. And you can find out more about that just by going to counselingtutor.com. So there, a little bit about goals, our goals for 2018, and of course, getting you to think about yours. But we move on, and our next topic is, we call it Practice Matters. Why? Because practice does matter. It's the most important part of what we do. It's where the rubber meets the road, Rory. When we're in front of those clients, we're now in practice, and we have to use the skills that we've learned. We have to put into practice the theory that we've learned, and it can be so overwhelming. And Rory has taken it upon himself to put together a number of little inserts that we put into our podcast. Go back on past episodes, you'll hear how fantastic they are. They all come with a super duper download, and today is no exception. But we're looking at such an important one today. We're going to be looking at fundamentals in counselling. Give us a bit of a flavour, Rory.
Yes, well, what we do know is that when we go into situations that have high anxiety, our brains tend to switch off. And one of the things that the military is very good at is drilling people in fundamentals. In other words, getting them to do certain things kind of without any thought at all. And the same thing really happens in my experience with students who are going into practice. Maybe you're seeing clients for the first time, and all of a sudden you find that your head's fuzzy, that you're not kind of, what should I do? What should I do? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about fundamental things that you need to do, just the very basic things that you need to do. And also I'm going to do a super duper handout so that you can have a look at the kind of things that you should have in place, just the very basic things that sometimes it's easy to overlook.
Important stuff, and we're going to hear Rory and Practice Matters after this short message.
Take the stress out of your counselling studies and get the support of Rory and I by joining us in the Counselling Study Resource. See how Counselling Study Resource can help you. Visit counselingtutor.com. That's counselingtutor.com.
Recently, I had cause to get out my counselling certificate folder. This is a loose leaf book which I put all the certificates, my qualifications, my CPD certificates, so I can store them safely in one place. As you can imagine, for someone who's been practicing for 15 years, the book is fairly thick now. But one of the things I don't forget for all that I've learnt and all the courses that I've been on are counselling fundamentals. In other words, those very basic things that I was taught very, very early on in my career. And I'm going to share some of them with you. The first thing is timekeeping. When I went to college, our tutors were incredibly strict on timekeeping, and if any of my former students are listening, they may have a wry smile on their face, because I was absolutely a stickler for timekeeping. And the reason for that is because if you arrive at your practice 30 seconds before you're due to see a client, you may be anxious, your client may be anxious, and if you think about it, your client's sitting waiting for an appointment, they've got things on their mind. You may be the only person they can speak to, and they've got an appointment, say at 4 o'clock, and as the minute hand goes to the 12 o'clock, they may think, is the counsellor turning up? Have I got the right day? So I try and get in a few minutes early, just so that to greet the client. I see them at the time that we've contracted for, but I think it gives me a sense of being able to kind of get into the zone and to kind of filter out what's been going on around me in my day and just begin that process of making me feel connected and focused on my clients. The second is be attentive. Put the client at the centre of your attention. Be present, focus on them. Remember, having someone giving them their undivided attention may be something the client's never experienced before, and certainly in my practice. For clients to be able to speak to someone who doesn't judge them, who doesn't give them advice, discount them, dismiss them, it can be quite a unique experience. And that's one of the things that never fails to amaze me, even though I've been practicing for quite a few years. Just the fact that sometimes at the end of a session, clients say, "Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving me your time." And it may be that in their wider lives, there isn't anybody that gives them that time, puts some time aside for them to hear them and listen to them and pay attention to them. The third fundamental is don't just listen, hear. Listening is an easy skill to master. You just sit and listen to someone and you recount back what they've said. But actually hearing somebody is a whole different skill and one that is a lot harder to master. So what's the difference? Well, listening is like listening to anything. It's listening to the words and the narrative. But the next time you listen to some music, maybe a favourite song, you may be able to recite the words, but what feelings does that song bring up on you? How does it feel to sing that song? And it's that's really the key to being able to communicate back to the client how you've experienced them. So I might say to the client, it seems that you're very sad. It seems you're sad when you tell me this. And that can be quite a revelation for a client to actually not only hear what they've said to you in a paraphrase, but also the emotion that's behind it. I used to call it the music behind the words. The fourth fundamental is silence, and here silence is your friend. For all the training I've undertaken throughout the years, I find the use of silence the most facilitative skill. It allows the client real space to discuss their issues and feel what emotions are coming up for them. Sometimes just having someone to talk to can help the client solve their own issues or see what changes need to be made in their lives. I'm never failed to be amazed when I'm listening to a client, giving them my attention, they're talking through their issues, and all of a sudden they'll say, "Actually, talking about it's made me realise that I do this. And maybe I should be doing that." It's almost like they can hear themselves speak uninterrupted and they can actually hear themselves what they want to change. It's a very underrated skill, silence, and one that I think is one of the most powerful skills, but really, really underrated. Silence is definitely you and your client's friend. The fifth of the fundamentals is use the core conditions. Now I realise there may be some people who are doing an integrative counselling or maybe using TA. And when I'm talking about the core conditions, it's the kind of conditions that you'll find most therapies share. And it's being empathic, being non-judgmental, and showing that you're a genuine person who is deeply interested in the client. These really are fundamental in building trust. And when trust is built, this facilitates the client's own process. If we think about it, clients will come to us with a story. There may be shame attached to it. There may be fear. They may not want to look at the issues that are really causing them the problems. But if they meet someone who's real, who really gets them, and is really genuine, not false or putting on an act of being a therapist, that builds a trusting relationship. And when trust is built, miracles literally happen. People can then talk about those things that in the past they've never been able to speak about before. And within that, facilitates the therapy. Clients can then start to really talk about their issues and just see where they're at with them. It's very, very powerful. And those facilitative conditions, as I sometimes call them, or the core conditions as they're popularly characterised, of empathy, congruence and unconditional positive regard, should really, really not be underestimated. And they really are facilitative. They're real basics of building a relationship. My sixth fundamental is meet the client where they are. Work with what they bring and at their pace. Don't be tempted to rush the process. And pace here is really the key. You may need to run to keep up or stop as the client catches their thoughts. One of the difficult things and one of the least helpful things a therapist can do is stop the client in the process of where they're at and impose their own their own kind of pace. It's a bit like teaching someone to run or helping someone run. They may run very quickly, in which case you'd have to keep up, and they may stop to catch their breath. The whole thing is that the client is going at their own pace, and ourselves as therapists need to understand that. We don't need to kind of put our pace onto them. What we need to do is allow them to go at their own pace, and that is basically the basis of autonomy. They are being their own people. It may be there's lots of people around them who are telling them what to do, telling them to be quiet, telling them not to talk too much. But actually, if you're meeting the client where they are, hearing them and staying with them or slowing down with them, they'll almost certainly feel heard and valued. Again, another key to building a really good therapeutic relationship. Finally, summarise the end. One of the difficulties I know a lot of my students used to face was how to end a session. They felt rude interrupting the clients, and sometimes, certainly in practice sessions, the sessions would overrun. But you have to finish them on time, because if you've got another client, then of course you're disrespecting the next client, you see. So by overrunning, you could end up you could put an hour, quite easily put an hour onto your day if you've got quite a few clients. So ending on time is really important. It's important for a number of reasons. A, it gives you time to reflect. If you've got space between the next client, write your notes. Maybe have a comfort break, as our American friends say. But also it sets a boundary. It allows the client to understand that you're with them for that therapeutic hour, which is usually 50 minutes. 5 minutes as an introduction to get settled in, and 5 minutes to maybe make the next appointment and walk to the door to wish them well on their way to the next session. A summary is a very useful way of bringing a session to an end, and the best way of starting it is around 5 minutes towards the end of the session. You could start off with saying, "We have about 5 minutes left. If I could summarise what you have spoken about." And it's a great way of letting the client know you've heard them and respectfully bringing the session to a close. And it does something else. A lot of the rookie mistakes, I'm going to use the term mistakes, that students use is they get right to the end and then they say to their clients, "Is there anything else?" And the client goes, "Yes, there's loads of things." And before long, you can't shut them down again. So the way to do it is to summarise. A summary allows the client to know they've been heard. It gives them a sense that the session's coming to an end. And also it gives you a little chance to clarify anything. Maybe when you do your summary, the client says, "Well, it was like that, but it was more like this." That's a way of being able to acknowledge that and say, "Oh, okay, I really understand that now." And then you can go on to make the next session. For me, it doesn't matter how many qualifications you get, what training you have. Keeping to fundamentals is the very basis of being able to operate as a counsellor. It's the foundations of practice. And without those, anything that's built on top won't last very long or work very well.
Thank you, as always, Rory. Such important information, and you can be filled with such anxiety when you're about to see that first client or go back into practice or go into placement. Just having those fundamentals, that reminder that it's back to basics, so important. And I suggest go and download Rory's super duper handout, print it out. Even if you're not in practice now, print it out, put it somewhere safe, because you're going to refer to this when it is time to go in to see that first client, or when it is time to go into your placement. And where do you get it? Well, you go to counsellingtutor.com. On the homepage, just click on the podcast tab. That'll take you to all of our past episode podcasts. This is episode 84. When you click on episode 84, you'll get all the show notes from today's episode, all the links from that Rory and I discuss, and you can download Rory's super duper handout from right there within the page. Of course, if you are already a member of the Counselling Study Resource, well, then you just log into your Counselling Study Resource dashboard, click on your handouts vault, and it's already there for you, because that's one of the benefits of being a Counselling Study Resource member is you don't need to go to the website and download stuff. We put it in a folder for you to access and search whenever you need it. So thanks for that, Rory. And moving on to something that comes up time and time again, and that is reading lists.
Yes. Every course, certainly at level 4 and above, should have a reading list. In other words, a set of books or resources that the tutors recommend you read around, so that links into your assignments. So the assignments you would expect in your assignments that you would quote certain books. And I know a lot of you have been asking on our Facebook page, and if you want to know where our Facebook page is, if you just search Facebook and type in Counselling Tutor, you'll find two. One is our business page, and that's the one with the stars on. Give us a star, give us a like if that's the case. But we also have a wonderful supportive community of over 19,000 people interested in the world of counselling and psychotherapy. They post on a regular basis in the page. And one of the things that comes up time and time again is, what shall I read? What shall I read? Well, I've created a reading list based on my experience as a tutor, and we're going to make that available to you. But I think reading lists are so important. So I'm going to give a top tip out here, Ken, on reading lists.
I'm going to write it down.
All right, have you got your pen?
I've got my pen. Look, here it is.
He's got his pen. I can see him through the studio window on the monitor. So one of the secrets of academic books is to start at the back. So, like with most books you might take an holiday, you start at the front and read them all the way through. But actually, it's useful to go down the index and look at the topic you're studying. So if it's empathy, if it's congruence, if it's transactional analysis and it's strokes, or CBT and its action, belief and consequence, go down the back of the book, find that. Ken's writing this down. I can see him writing this down. Go to the back, have a look, and then go to the chapter. Because a lot of the reference books, what you have to remember is a lot of books are reference books. You're referencing. The clue here really is in the name, isn't it? Referencing. So if you're referencing something in your assignment, what you need to do is focus in on what's being asked. So when you get your books, just go down the back, have a look at the topic that you're being asked to discuss, start there, and then open it up there and have a look. It may be that through the course of your studies, you read the whole book, but that is my top tip, and it's one that can save a heck of a lot of time. Don't start at the beginning hoping you're going to come across it. Start at the back and find it immediately.
100%. Yes, get through to that index, because it gives you the list of all the topics in the book. Look for the topic you've got in your assignment that you need to reference. Go to that page, and there it is. Another top tip on your reading list is you're going to be reading your books. Yeah, so you get your books and you want to have a look through them and read them and get an idea what's in those books. My recommendation is read them before you get to your assignment, so you've got an idea what's in the books anyway. And then, of course, use Rory's tip of going to the back to find the exact topic. But as you're going through your books, if you have a little stack of notes, Post-it notes, I think they're called, handy, you can actually get different coloured Post-it notes. They sell them at any good stationers. They're all different colours, and you can get yourself little Post-it notes and stick them in the pages, sticking out of the book, so you can see the little colour tab, and write just on there kind of what that topic is. So if you come across maybe a good quote for empathy, and you think, hey, that'll be cool when I eventually come to an assignment, get a Post-it note, write empathy, stick it in. And the reason I say the different colours is my obsessive compulsion, I guess, to have things organised and neat. But myself, I prefer to use different colour labels for different colour topics, Rory.
Well, there you have it, Ken. And also, I agree with you. Reading through books is really, really useful. I mean, you can guarantee if you're studying a person-centered course, you're going to be asked about the necessary and sufficient conditions. You're going to be asked about the work of Carl Rogers. You're going to be asked about the theory. So if you find the theory, the basic theory, then you can start just looking into it, having a look, gaining some idea, just reading around it before you actually get to it. And I think that's a really, really good idea. Some books are eminently more readable than others. I mean, I think Roger's A Way of Being is really a really good book. It's probably the easiest to read. But yeah, think about what you might be asked, and then kind of try and find that in your book. You can either go through the back, as I do, just start at the back and work my way forward, or you can do the Ken post-it note technique, which is equally good, and just mark your book through as you find those gems of information that that the person who's marking your assignment's going to need. Or
both. You can even do both. Do it in stereo, why not? And yes. And another great tip for books, it's about how you treat your book, So I guess I was taught from a very early age, you go to nursery school or kindergarten, and you're given a book, and the first thing you want to do is grab a crayon and you want to scribble on the book. I don't know, it's an innate human thing. Maybe it's just me. I want to write on books. Well, I did when I was a child. That organismic voice wanted to write on the books. But then we're told we must not write in the books, and that books are for looking at and treating really well and then closing and putting away. And it was when I got back into studies that I realized that is not true. My first instinct was right. It is good to write in your books. Get yourself some highlighters. When you're reading through your books and you come across a bit of theory or something you find interesting, pick up a highlighter and highlight that information. It's going to help you so much when you go back and you are looking for that key information for your assignments or for a topic that you're covering in class. You just skip through the book and you can see the important bits because you've gone and highlighted them. So don't be afraid to write.
Absolutely, Ken. That's one of the benefits of buying second-hand books, because someone's probably done that for you. And here's a little bit of a tip: if you go to the library, college or university library, get the book out, put it on its spine, and just gently open it like you would a flower, and you can see where the books have been forced open, where people have been studying the relevant topics. and usually you can see where people are put underlined in pencil. And yeah, just one final plea: if you are buying books, I know that a lot of people are selling books on our Counselling Tutor Facebook page. We don't, it's nothing to do with ourselves, but people like to sell the books and students like to buy them. If you are buying books, anything with theory in, you can buy second-hand ones. That's fine. If a theorist has written a book, it's almost certainly that's not, the theory is not going to change. But if you're buying books on things like the law, on ethics, or the new ideas in counselling practice, buy the latest editions, because if you're quoting from a book that's out of date, that can get you in real difficulty with your assignment. I've had people who've quoted laws in assignments that are no longer relevant, and I've had to say, I have to refer you, because that isn't actually the law. So anything that might be more relevant, ethics, person-centered counselling and action, get the latest ones. But if you find a Carl Rogers Reader or a TA Today or any kind of book that talks about theory, then almost certainly you can buy that a little cheaper, maybe off an auction site, or someone selling it.
For sure. And just on that very topic, it's not really a book, but keep in mind the same is true for things like ethical frameworks. If you've got a copy of an ethical framework lying around, do not refer to it. Go and print out the latest copy, because they're being updated all the time. You want the latest. And I know that the BACP ethical framework was expanded only just recently, and we covered that in our last episode of Counselling Tutor Podcast. Well, there you have it. That is our maiden voyage for this next series in the Counselling Tutor Podcast, episode 84. We kicked off by asking, what are your goals, your study goals for 2018, 2019, and where will you be a year from today? Really think about that one. In practice matters, we went back to basics, to the important stuff, the fundamentals of counselling. And of course, you can get Rory's download from counsellingtutor.com, podcast tab, episode 84. And then, of course, choosing a reading list, and we will be sharing a reading list, so keep your eyes on the Facebook page. We mail them out from time to time, and the cool thing about Rory's reading list is it's a link, and you click on the link and it's going to take you to a Google document, and that Google document is updated all the time, so check back regularly, because Rory is adding stuff all the time.
Absolutely. And why not share your goals in our Facebook group? let's celebrate where you're going to go. Why don't you share them with the rest of the students on the Facebook group? Well, that's been a fantastic maiden voyage episode. We've set the sail. We're heading into the sun on a beautiful azure sea, Ken, and we'll be coming back with more episodes. So as always, stay grounded and stay safe.
And before I check out, I want to ask one massive favor. We want as many counselling students listening to the Counselling Tutor podcast as possible. Please share the podcast with your peers, with your classmates. Tell them it's available. Let them search it. Let them come and join in, because for me, the more, the merrier. Take care.
Take the stress out of your counselling studies and get the support of Rory and I by joining us in the Counselling Study Resource. Counselling Study Resource, or CSR for short, is the world's most comprehensive assignment guidance and study support resource for students just like you of counselling and psychotherapy. See how Counselling Study Resource can help you. Visit counsellingtutor.com. That's counsellingtutor.com.
Thank you for listening to the Counselling Tutor Podcast. Find the show notes for this episode on our website at www.counsellingtutor.com.